At 02:03 a.m., I found the box they used to hide children and chemicals and call it produce. The next 90 minutes would decide whether 12 kids see dawn, or whether this desert learns how loud a warehouse can scream. I killed the truck's dome light, unscrewed my license plates, and buried them in the sand. Khalil would have called it paranoia. Reyes called it Tuesday. He'd remained in town to mislead local police, staging a drunken brawl that ended in the drunk tank, airtight alibi. Sofia begged to join the infiltration, swore she could slip through vents, but I left her with a map and a radio. She hugged me without words, slipped a paper saint into my pocket, her version of armor. I hiked the drainage ditch until it merged with a culvert that fed under the warehouse lot. The grate bolts were rusted, no alarm sensor. When I popped it, scorpions scattered over my boots. They fled. I crawled in. 30 yards later, the pipe yawned into a sump pit beneath the slab. Above me, humming refrigeration lines, the high whine of compressors, and the occasional clang of pallet jacks. I wedged a magnet anchor into the concrete, clipped in, and ascended through a maintenance hatch that opened behind a stack of empty berry crates. Cool air blasted my face, 40 degrees to keep produce crisp or captives docile. My breath fogged, my pulse didn't. The first crate I opened held chilies. The second hid vacuum-sealed bricks of fentanyl, shrink-wrapped nightmares waiting for schoolyards. The third crate rattled. When I slashed the straps, a girl's eyes stared back, pupils wide from tranquilizers. Her wrists were zip-tied to rungs welded inside. Beside her lay a boy, maybe 8, breathing shallow. They'd been packaged like fragile glass. A forklift engine echoed near the next aisle. I resealed the crate, slid to a gap in the racks, and watched 2 workers in orange vests load a pallet onto a lift. One complained, "Why freeze dope next to meat?" The other shrugged. Neither saw me drop behind, wrench a crowbar from a tool cart, and slam it across the talker's trachea. The driver tried to reverse. I jammed the crowbar through the steering wheel, bent it upward, crushed his sinuses with the butt of my pistol. 2 uniforms down, no gunfire. Silence kept the plan breathing. I dragged their bodies to a scrap bin and keyed the forklift alive. The control panel displayed a destination code, RB07. Manifest printout taped to the console showed RB07 departing at dawn for a private airstrip. Same plane Victor promised. Sofia's name wasn't on the list. Neither were the 2 kids. The manifest said RB07 carried only organic Roma tomatoes. Paperwork immaculate. Hell writes neat. I rolled the forklift forward, eyes scanning rafters for cameras. None. Cartel trusted quiet more than electronics, easier to bury rumor than footage. I parked beside a steel office cube that overlooked the floor. Inside, a single desk lamp burned over ledgers, Polaroids, and a child-sized bracelet identical to the one Sofia gave me my first week in Santa Rosa. My lungs locked. I flipped the ledger, dates, weight, destination codes. Next to Sofia's ID number, transit complete, Phantom Ranch. She'd been moved east hours ago. A footstep creaked behind me. I whirled. A middle-aged clerk in reading glasses stared, mouth trembling around a half-formed question. I put a finger to my lips, showed him the bracelet, and whispered, "Where's Phantom Ranch?" He glanced at a phone, at a panic button, then at my pistol. He swallowed. "Outside El Rubio, high desert, only dirt road." His eyes pleaded for mercy. I thanked him with the butt of the pistol against his temple. The desk drawer hid a Glock and 3 mags. Insurance the clerk never got to cash. I pocketed 2 mags, then set charges. 1 beneath the ledger stack, 1 at the fuel barrel near the dock, 1 under the ammonia valves that cooled the produce, and the children. I wired them to a single remote detonator the size of a car key. The clock on the wall said Wood 2.17. Police response in this county averaged 26 minutes. I planned to leave nothing for them but smoke. On the way out, I broke every freezer lock and slit the plastic of each child crate, leaving box cutters for whoever survived the drugs. The sedated girl stirred as cold air met her skin. She whispered something in Spanish about angels. I wasn't one, but I cut her bonds anyway and pressed an ammonia mask to her face. "Run that direction," I said, pointing to the culvert grate. "Crawl until you see stars." She nodded, adrenaline overriding tranquilizer, and tugged the boy after her. A spotlight snapped on outside, headlights swerving into the loading bay. More guards than I counted. One shouted, "Apaguen todo!" Another aimed a flashlight down an aisle, beam slicing the dark toward me. I slid behind a pallet and fired once. The beam crashed to concrete. Shouts scattered. Someone hit a manual alarm. Red strobes erupted. I sprinted ceiling catwalks, dropping smoke canisters, letting them hiss chemical fog that burned nostrils. Footsteps clanged behind me. Bullets pinged corrugated walls. I vaulted onto the roof walk ladder, ascended into night, and rolled flat as a rooftop guard turned. He never spotted me. I rolled again, knife drawing a smile across his femoral artery. He dropped without sound, blood steaming in the chill. Police sirens yawned on the distant highway, quicker than 26 minutes. Someone tipped them early. Good. Let them own the ruins. I crawled to the roof edge, remote detonator kissing my glove. The culvert grate below rattled, the girl and boy emerging into starlight, running limp-legged into desert brush. 10 feet behind them staggered 2 more silhouettes, older teens freed by box cutters. Hope spread faster than blood. Doors slammed below. A black SUV screeched beside the roll-up, its passenger door already opening. A tall man stepped out in a camel hair coat, silver pistol drawn, the kingpin's emissary, if not the king himself. He barked orders I couldn't hear over the sirens. Guards fanned out like ants, one pointing at the office. They'd find the charges in seconds. I whispered a goodbye to restraint and pressed the key. Light bloomed under the roof, white as creation, then orange as hell. The blast punched upward, lifting sheets of steel like paper, shattering skylights into northern lights of glass. Shockwaves slapped me across gravel, headphones wringing blood. Below, the SUV cartwheeled in slow agony, windows vomiting flame. Refrigerant lines ruptured, ammonia hissed, fireballs chased each other along conveyor belts. I rolled, lungs refusing air thicker than ash, and crawled to the opposite parapet. Sirens screamed closer, tires skidding, officers already shouting. The children who'd escaped huddled behind a berm. I signaled them north, away from flashing lights that would mistake them for traffickers. Blue strobes painted my boots as I dropped from the roof into a trash skip. Pain ricocheted up my spine. Adrenaline stapled it in place. I scrambled through smoke to the culvert, vanished under the lot, and crawled until desert wind replaced burning freon. Behind me, the warehouse groaned like a wounded animal, then collapsed in a mushroom of sparks. Somewhere inside that roar, I hoped the ledger of souls burned clean. Sirens faded as I hiked toward distant headlights, Reyes in the getaway sedan, engine idling like a held breath. He stared at the inferno, jaw slack. "You burn the hive," he muttered, "but the queen is elsewhere." I handed him the ledger photos from my camera and the clerk's map to Phantom Ranch. "Then we smoke her next." He looked at me, eyes searching for a line I hadn't yet crossed. "How many explosions until you're the thing we're fighting?" I checked the saint badge in my pocket. Creased, sweat damp, unburned. "When the badge turns to ash," I said. "Not before." We drove into the desert, warehouse flames shrinking in the mirror, but a new glow rising beyond the hills, El Rubio's lights, where a Phantom Ranch waited with more cages and fewer illusions. The fuse was burning faster than I cared to measure. Emily's holster felt lighter than air, heavier than sin. And somewhere in the smoke behind us, a cartel king noted the scent of gunpowder and realized a ghost had traded stealth for fire. We drove an hour east on a power line track that barely deserved a name, the sedan bucking over washouts until the shocks squealed like animals. At dawn, the desert turned pewter, the color of a sky deciding whether to punish or forgive. Reyes studied the clerk's map, finger-tapping a crude X labeled Phantasma. Phantom Ranch. No address, no mileage, just a claw mark near a dry lake. 10 miles later, the sedan gasped its last. A bullet hole from last night had finally drained the oil. We abandoned it under a Palo Verde and hiked the rest of the way, wind sharpening each breath. By mid-morning, we reached a ridgeline of volcanic rock. Beyond it sprawled a compound of weather-beaten barns encircled by chain link. From above it looked deserted, no trucks, no men, yet the sand inside the fence shimmered with fresh tire ruts. Reyes lifted binoculars, adjusted focus. "Solar panels on every roof," he muttered. "Off-grid. They can lock the world out and never flick a switch." A glint on a water tower made me squint. Rifle scope. So, not deserted. Cameras too, disguised as nesting boxes. We ducked behind boulders. The sun baked the metal of my pistol until it branded my palm. I imagined Sofia in one of those barns and felt the burn welcome. Reyes tapped my shoulder, whispered, "We need diversion." I pointed to an irrigation pump house 100 yards off the perimeter. "That transformer, full of mineral oil." He smiled. "A firefly in daylight." We crawled down the slope. Cacti tore our sleeves. Sweat salted our eyes. At the pump house, Reyes rigged a flare to the fuse box, while I looped dead cord around the chain link opposite the rifle tower. We synced watches. Flare at +3 minutes, fence breach at +4. Then we split. Him circling west, me south. Time dilated. 30 seconds lasted a lifetime, long enough to remember Emily's laughter and the way Sofia's hand trembled when she drew her saint. At +3 the transformer detonated, a concussion of white flame and black smoke. Sirens on the tower wailed. 2 guards broke from a barn, sprinting for extinguishers. Their focus tunneled on the fire. They never saw the det cord flash. Fence dropped like a curtain. I slipped through and sprinted to the barn with the freshest tracks. Door padlocked but loose on rusted hinges. One kick, inside, darkness, chemical tang, humming. I toggled a flashlight. Cages, not children, dogs. Half-starved Belgian Malinois pacing in wire kennels. Fightin' dogs. Their eyes caught my beam with a plea older than language. I cut one latch, then another. The first dog snarled, unsure, then bolted past me into sunlight. The others followed, tails low, fangs bared at freedom. Alarms howled louder. Now gunfire cracked near the pump house. Reyes was buying time. I pushed deeper, found a metal hatch in the floor. A freight elevator platform sat below, hydraulic lines dripping. I hit the switch. It groaned upward, revealing a tunnel lit by red bulbs. Cold air rushed out, carrying formaldehyde. I descended into a corridor lined with plexiglass rooms. Within each, operating tables, IV bags, biometric sensors. A hospital built for ghosts. In the last room, I found a tech in scrubs packing syringes into a cooler. He spun, scalpel raised. I pressed the Glock to his sternum. "Kid transports? Where are they?" He shook, sweat pooling at his collar. "Gone. Loaded pre-dawn. El Colmillo personally supervised." The Fang, Aurelio Vargas, the cartel general who stitched corruption into uniforms. "Destination?" I barked. He swallowed. "Airstrip outside Guanajuato," he whispered. Codename Hellmouth. Before I could question more, radio chatter blared overhead. "Intruder in the kennel tunnel. Intercept now." I zip-tied the tech, gagged him with his own mask. On his tablet, a live feed showed Reyes pinned behind a tractor, exchanging fire with half a dozen gunmen. Smoke from the pump house cloaked the yard, but thermal drones hovered in lazy loops. Time to trade stealth for speed. I stepped into the corridor's electrical alcove, ripped the breaker panel, and cranked every switch. Overload sparks leapt. The ventilation fans died with a moan. Formaldehyde vapor thickened. I planted a thermite stick on the main oxygen tank and set its chemical timer for 2 minutes. Then I sprinted toward the elevator, stopped. On a gurney lay a cardboard evidence box labeled Personal Effects, Group 47. Inside, 6 bracelets like Sofia's, 1 charm etched with her name. Pulse rocketed. She'd been prepped here, maybe drugged on that very table. I pocketed the bracelets and ascended. Surface chaos greeted me. Dogs tearing at guards, gunmen firing blindly through smoke, Reyes limping toward an ATV with 2 magazines left. I cut through the mayhem, shot a guard dragging Reyes down, and hauled him onto the ATV. We roared out a side gate just as the thermite kissed oxygen. The underground ward erupted. The blast vented through the barn roof, launching sheet metal skyward like shrapnel. A shockwave chased us across the dust flats, punching the ATV sideways. We fishtailed, stabilized. Behind us, flames painted the morning orange. A silo collapsed in slow agony. But the rifle tower remained intact. A sharpshooter nested high tracked us, shot cracking. First round punched the fender, second tore my sleeve. I handed Reyes the handlebars, drew the Glock, and fired 3 rounds at the tower. Too far. Reyes veered toward a ravine, bullets zipping overhead. A howl of engines rose behind, pickup trucks giving chase. We plunged into the ravine's wash, gravel spraying. A mile later, the ATV coughed. Fuel line punctured. We ditched it under mesquite and hobbled into a slot canyon barely wider than our shoulders. Boots skidded on loose shale. Echoing gunfire told us the trucks had arrived. Halfway through the canyon, a dead cow lay bloated, blocking the path. Buzzards scattered. Reyes hissed a curse, clutched his wounded thigh. I rolled the carcass aside with gritted teeth. Beneath it, as if dropped by fate, lay a rust-spotted irrigation pipe 8 feet long. I handed Reyes my pistol, hefted the pipe. Gunmen entered the canyon mouth. I jammed the pipe into a wedge of limestone, angled down the slope, stuffed my last flash charge inside, and struck the fuse. Improvised cannon. The flash charge detonated, hurtling the pipe like a battering ram down the chute. Metal met bone. First gunman flipped backward, second pinned beneath him. The others scattered. We slipped over the ridge and disappeared into tumbleweed plains. For an hour we limped north, sun branding our necks. Finally, Reyes collapsed beside a dry cistern. I forced water down his throat, tied his thigh with cloth torn from my shirt. He eyed my pocket where Sofia's bracelets peaked. "Proof she was here," he rasped. "We're close." I nodded, but dread gnawed my gut. Hellmouth Airstrip lay 200 miles southeast. Too far, too fortified. The radio on Reyes's belt sputtered. A newscaster's Spanish voice trembled. "Massive explosion outside El Rubio. Sources confirm animals freed. Warehouse destroyed. General Aurelio Vargas vows vengeance on foreign saboteurs. Security lockdown on all regional highways." Reyes closed his eyes. We lit the match. "And Vargas smells the smoke," I said. "Good." I checked the Saint badge, caked in sweat but intact. The line it drew between savior and arsonist felt thinner than my breath. "Truck approaching," Reyes warned, ears sharper than mine. I dragged him into the cistern shadow. Dust plume grew, but instead of Cartel pickup, a battered school bus rattled into view. The same bus of rescued children. At the wheel, the Red Cross volunteer eyed armed, face streaked with soot. Kids waved from broken windows. The door creaked open. The volunteer tossed me a battered satellite phone. "A woman named Marquez said you'd need this," he shouted. "She's forwarding live drone feeds. They're looking for you." On the phone screen, thermal imagery showed convoy icons fanning across the desert. Hellmouth Airstrip lit up like a nest of hornets, but north of it, a single dirt strip remained cold. No patrols, no sensors. A smuggler's runway, maybe overlooked. I zoomed. 2 cargo planes parked nose to nose. One bore Cartel markings, the other U.S. private contractor paint. Reyes peered over my shoulder. "They're transshipping kids to contractor planes. Silencio sold the stock to new buyers." "And those planes leave tonight," I guessed. I squeezed the phone so hard it creaked. "We need wings." The volunteer stepped down, handed over the bus keys. "Take it. It leaks oil and prays in Spanish, but it moves." I glanced at the children, their hollow eyes reflecting the ruin we'd left behind. One girl offered me a crayon drawing, stick figure with a beard, gun in one hand, heart in the other, labeled El Fantasma Bueno, the good ghost. 12 bracelets waited somewhere, 12 clocks ticking. I turned to Reyes. "You still game?" He grinned, despite the blood on his teeth. "I still owe Diego a bullet." We herded the kids into the cistern shade, left them food, radioed their location to a church aid station. The bus engine coughed to life. I climbed behind the wheel, holster empty, pockets heavy with explosions yet to be lit. Reyes posted lookout with the stolen rifle. We rolled south toward Hellmouth and the unguarded strip beyond, the road shimmering like liquid metal, the desert holding its breath for the next blaze. The school bus engine rattled like a jar of pebbles, its gauges stuck on hope alone. I nursed it south across a badland of lava rock and salt flats while the sun climbed, bleaching the horizon into white noise. Reyes sat shotgun, bandage seeping through his pant leg, eyes pinned to the drone feed phone. Convoy icons drifted in lazy circles around Hellmouth Airstrip, but a tiny wedge of blue showed no patrols along the northern maintenance road. Our crack in the wall. 30 miles out, the highway dipped into a checkpoint manned by federales in brand-new armor. Cartel buy-offs. They waved trucks through after a perfunctory mirror sweep, but any yellow bus with bullet holes would read like a confession. Reyes pointed to a dry arroyo that paralleled the road, and I cranked the wheel. The bus bounced off asphalt and plunged into dust so fine it behaved like water, swallowing the tires to the hubcaps. Metal groaned. Children's crayons slid off the dash. We crawled half a mile before the rear axle dug a grave. Reyes cursed, started to bail, but a silhouette appeared on the ridge, a lanky teenager on a dirt bike, scarf masking his face. He rolled down, engine purring like a gnat. I raised my pistol. He lifted both hands, revealing a Red Cross patch stitched to his sleeve. Mateo's work. The boy yelled over the bike's sputter. Padrino says the ghost needs speed. He tossed Reyes a set of keys attached to a plastic angel. We followed him over the ridge. Hidden in a wash was a flat black pickup with auxiliary fuel tanks and desert tires, fat as hope. The boy rode off before we could thank him. I glanced at the angel key fob. Its wings were snapped. Good omen or bad, I wasn't sure. We loaded water, ammo, and Reyes's battered baton, then buried the St. John bus under a camo tarp. Cratered tracks vanished under fresh brush. From the air, it would look like any ghost arroyo. Reyes slapped the hood. Let's steal an airstrip. We drove the maintenance road until it rose onto a shale shelf overlooking Hellmouth. The strip was a tarmac ribbon carved out of alkali crust, flanked by 2 hangars and a rusty control tower. On the apron sat the Cartel's C-123 cargo bird, nose art of a fang-bitten rose, and nose-to-nose with it, a gleaming white Gulfstream bearing a U.S. contractor insignia hastily painted over. Aluminum staircases connected their cargo doors, creating a bridge for live freight. Closer, we saw them. Children herded in single file, wristbands flashing under handheld scanners. 12, exactly. Sofia near the front, braid tangled, shoulders squared like a soldier. My throat pinched. Reyes and I counted defenders, 2 snipers in the tower, 6 riflemen on the apron, 4 more escorting a crate marked Vaccine Cold Chain. And there, standing between the planes, fists clasped behind his back, General Aurelio El Colmillo Vargas. The fang, medals and a silk scarf, expression carved from the same stone that domed the desert. A private mill physician approached Vargas, handed him a tablet. He glanced at Sofia's wristband, signed something with a stylus. Transaction on schedule. We had 40 minutes until wheels up, no time for subtlety. Reyes outlined a knife-edge plan, cut the runway lights mid-transfer, sow panic, drive a wedge between the 2 factions, then extract Sofia in the confusion. I studied the terrain. 1 power shack fed the entire strip. Below that, lights die, tower radios blink out. We parked behind a dune, rigged 3 of Reyes's home-rolled flash charges into a single brick, taped it to a thermite rod, and crawled to the shack. Wire cutters bit through chain link, no alarms. Inside, breaker panels hummed like beehives. I wedged the charge under the main transformer, set a 5-minute timer, and paused. 5 minutes felt stingy, but every extra second risked Sofia boarding that Gulfstream. I dialed 4, crawl back. Reyes limped, wound, leaking again, but never slowed. Halfway, we were spotted. A perimeter guard on ATV angling toward us. I froze. Reyes stood, waved his baton like a lazy foreman, shouted in slurred Spanish about downed power to the North Tower. The guard hesitated, radioed in. then peeled off in the opposite direction. Reyes dropped back to his knee, sweat silver on his brow. 3 minutes, he wheezed. We sprinted the dune line to the pickup. I fired the engine, killed the headlights, nosed downhill. 90 seconds. The pickup's stolen police band crackled, tower reporting voltage anomaly. Vargas barked an order I couldn't parse. Children halted on the stair bridge. 40 seconds. We reached an auxiliary fuel bowser parked near sandbags. Perfect cover. I popped the cab door, readied the Ep.4. Reyes slumped against the fender, rifle braced, covering my sector. 20. Sofia's head turned toward the ridge, eyes scanning the dark as if she felt the second hand scything. 10. The desert blinked white. Transformer blew like a sun nova, wave of heat rolling across the flats. All lights died. Both planes fell black. Tower windows cracked. Panic detonated. Contractor guards shouted in English, Cartel in Spanish, each accusing the other of betrayal. Someone loosed a panicked burst skyward. Tracer rounds carved neon scribbles across moonlight. We roared from behind the bowser, headlights now blazing. I aimed straight for the stair bridge, horn screaming. Riflemen scattered. One planted a bullet in the hood, but missed the block. Reyes lit a flare and hurled it into the vaccine crate. Orange bloom consumed styrofoam, sending shards of dry ice ghosting over the tarmac. The sudden fog split the apron in half. I skidded to a halt at the foot of the stairs. Sofia stood frozen mid-step, eyes wild. "Run!" I shouted. She crashed down the stairs, 3 kids on her heels. Cartel gunfire shredded the Gulfstream skin. Contractors returned fire. The kids dropped, pinned by bullets. I threw the pickup in reverse, fishtailed, and smacked into a line of fuel drums. Gasoline spurted. Reyes barked, "Draw them left!" He leapt from the bed, baton and rifle both in hand, shepherding children to the shadow of the cargo bird's wing. I floored the truck forward again, lights sweeping, horn blaring, fishtailing across fuel slick. Every rifle chased the noise. I cut the wheel, bailed out, let the truck ghost ride into a sand berm. It flipped, burst, became a fireball, so bright it silenced the guns for one heartbeat. Reyes emerged through smoke, 4 children clinging to him, Sofia pushing 2 more ahead. 6 down, 6 to go. But the Fang blocked the stair bridge now, pistol to a child's head. He shouted for us to drop weapons. Contractors encircled him, using kids as shields. Cartel men fanned opposite, rifles leveled at everyone. Mexican standoff beneath Mexican stars. I stepped into the half-light, empty hands raised. "Let them go, Vargas. Cargo's worthless in a crossfire." He smiled, the smile of a man who's never lost. "Ghost, every bullet here belongs to me. Even yours." Reyes edged closer to the Gulfstream's cockpit, eyes on a dangling refuel hose. I saw his plan and prayed his leg would hold. I kept talking. "Your buyers won't pay for dead flesh." I tossed him the saint badge. "But they'll double for the man who can still bleed." I drew my own knife, dragged the edge across my cheek, blood welled, crimson banner. "Proof of life," I said. Vargas's gaze flicked greedy. At that moment, Reyes opened the cockpit valve. Jet fuel sprayed like rain onto hot tarmac. Vapors kissed the fireball's edge, ignited in a whoosh that became a wall of blue flame. Contractors dove. Cartel men fired blindly. The Fang recoiled, pistol vanishing in light. I lunged through the inferno, wrapped Sofia in my arms, spun her to the ground. Bullets ripped over us, found someone else. Reyes herded the remaining children behind the landing gear. A stray round caught his calf. He buckled, cursed, kept moving. The Gulfstream's wing fuel tank detonated, geysering fire across the stair bridge. The Fang vanished in the blossom. Tower loudspeakers crackled emergency evac in both languages. Sirens, all colors, approached on every road. I dragged Sofia and 2 kids toward the desert side of the strip, found a maintenance gate hanging ajar from the transformer shockwave. Reyes limped through seconds later with the others, smoke curling off his jacket. We tumbled into the sage, sprinted until the blistering roar faded to distant thunder. At dawn, we reached a dry creek bed where the volunteer's dirt bike waited. Mateo's foresight again. One by one the children drank from a cracked canteen, eyes hollow but burning with new heat. Reyes sank to the sand, blood pooling beneath him. I tore fabric, bound his leg tight. He gripped my wrist. Sofia! She knelt beside him, pressed the saint badge back into his palm. Beyond the ridge, Hellmouth burned in pillars of black, aircraft skeletons glowing red. The Fang was either ash or cripple, but he'd left an empire that wouldn't rest. I could feel its fury vibrating through the ground, through Sofia's trembling breath, through the bullet that no longer lay in my holster, yet still counted every promise. Reyes stared at the smoke. The desert exhaled, and a phone on Reyes's belt lit up with an incoming MMS from an unknown satellite node. The screen showed General Vargas, soot-streaked but smiling, standing in front of a row of refrigerated railcars. Behind him hung a banner that read, Project Midnight Seraph, Departure T-36 hours. Vargas held up a jagged shard of Sofia's bracelet. Ghost, he said in shaky English, you've freed the wrong dozen. 12 more ride my trains tonight. Your fire only lights my tracks. The message cut to live drone footage. 3 trains pulling out of a canyon yard, each flat car stacked with sealed containers. Latitude, longitude, stamped the corner, 80 miles north, and climbing. Reyes closed his eyes. He's shifted to rail. No sky, no roads, just steel we can't outrun. I felt the saint badge in my pocket, edges curled from sweat and smoke, and for the first time wondered if paper could carry sin. Then we tear up the tracks, I said, throat raw. But we've got 36 hours and nothing left to burn except ourselves. Sofia touched my arm, small, steady. Ghosts don't burn, she whispered. They haunt. Dawn rolled a blood-red line across the horizon, and the ground under our boots began to vibrate with the distant clatter of Vargas's trains. And, as we limped north with 12 children, a dirt bike, and no ride but resolve, the sun crawled up a sky smeared by the warehouse ashes, the ranch ember, the airstrip inferno, each blaze a breadcrumb leading hell straight behind us, and each step a dare to light the next.